For today's story, we cover the Oklahoma Board of Education, which has downgraded a school district's accreditation over complaint that training has shamed white people. So again, the wokeness is truly everywhere, my friends, because in Oklahoma, they've had to downgrade a school board because they are shaming white people, which I'd like to remind people is discrimination on the basis of race, because one, it's selecting people by race, and two, assuming people of those races have particular characteristics that are embedded in that race. It's pretty racist. Just weeks after Oklahoma's governor called for a special audit of Tulsa public schools, the Board of Education voted to downgrade the district's accreditation status for violating a law that restricts teaching on race and gender. In a 4-2 vote on Thursday, the board based its decision to downgrade to accreditation with warning in response to a complaint stating a mandatory training session for teachers, which violated state law because it was racist as hell. A teacher filed the complaint with the state after she claimed teaching videos she was required to watch specifically shamed white people for past offenses in history and state that all are implicitly racially biased by nature. All are implicitly racially biased. That sounds pretty racist. This is the first penalty enforced against a district for violating the relevant law. The school district issued a blistering response to the state's board decision and said the schools are teaching our children an accurate and at times painful, difficult, and uncomfortable history about our shared human experience. Not when you say all white people are racist, it's not. The Oklahoma bill, which does not include the term critical race theory, is intended to stop discrimination, according to the bill. If any teacher teaches that an individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, bears responsibility for actions committed in the past by other members of the same race or sex, that's past guilt. That is corruption of blood. That's bad. Or that an individual, by virtue of his or her race or sex, is inherently racist, sexist, or oppressive, whether consciously or unconsciously, they can be suspended or have their license removed. Yeah, that sounds like some pretty racist garbage to me. It sounds like, yes, we are saying that all white people are this. All white people are guilty. All white people are responsible. All white people are racist, sexist, oppressive. Sounds pretty racist to me. No wonder Oklahoma banned it. According to Oklahoma, the training session the teacher complained about was provided by a third-party vendor and took place in August 2021 before administrative rules had taken effect. Well, that might be true, but the law had taken effect. Those rules advise a school district be labeled accredited with deficiency at minimum if it's found in violation of the law. The school district says it provided a training that included a topic of implicit bias. But it's clear there's no statement or sentiment pronounced that people are racist due to their race or other factor. We would never support such training. Are you sure? You sure you wouldn't support that, even if you're using a term like implicit bias? That people are racist due to any other factor? In a sentiment reacting to the board's decision, the school district took aim at the governor. It's notable that the governor's state board of education spent significant time today talking about the complaints of one teacher in one district, among hundreds of accreditation deficiencies statewide, and no time on our catastrophic teacher shortage facing every district in our state. Maybe one of the reasons you have a catastrophic teacher shortage is because of this woke shit. Maybe people don't want to be teachers because you are demeaning them and belying them and undermining them, and they don't want it. Maybe if you stop doing that would help a lot. The Tulsa School District, which is one of the largest districts in the state and has a majority of minority students, according to available data, has come under scrutiny in recent months. Earlier this month, the governor announced in a video message a special audit of the Tulsa School District for potentially mishandling of public funds and said he was concerned the district might have violated the law. At the request of 2 Tulsa school board members, today I'm calling for a special audit of Tulsa public schools and potential mishandling of public funds. Tulsa Public Schools received over $200 million in COVID federal relief funds. That is a lot of money. It seems quite plausible to believe some of it might have been misspent. In a previous interview, the superintendent of Tulsa Public Schools called the basis for an audit baseless. We have excellent management of funds. Great, then the audit will reveal nothing. And there's no basis for anyone to question our management of those federal dollars. There's no evidence to support anything he's saying. I welcome anyone who wants to come and take a careful review. Great. If you welcome anyone who wants to come and take a careful review, that's what an audit is. I'm glad you're welcoming it. What's the problem? Late last year, a group of students and educators filed a complaint challenging the Oklahoma law that restricts teaching about race and gender, and what American Civil Liberties Union calls the first federal lawsuit to challenge such a statewide ban. The suit, backed by the ACLU committee, the Oklahoma State Conference of the NAACP, and the American Indian Movement, for some reason, sought to block enforcement of the law it says inhibits free speech. It's in schools. It's in schools. More to the point, under classic doctrine, right? The employees are not exercising their own speech. They're exercising the government speech because they're employed by the school, right? So, like, a First Amendment complaint doesn't really work because the teachers are employed by the school. So it is the school's speech. But then again, of course, the school is authorized by the relevant law, including state law. So it's the government's speech. So you don't really have a First Amendment complaint here because it's not your speech, right? It's the government speech. And so that's like one of the major problems here. Also, the fact of what we teach our children is obviously a pedagogical concern that's up to the state's choices. So none of this really seems to work. Thus, that brings us to the end of the discussion of this article of the Oklahoma Board of Education, which has downgraded a school district for defying the state law. The state law says you can't teach people that they're inherently bad because of their race, that they're inherently guilty because of their race, that they're inherently culpable because of their race, because of the misdeeds of their racial ancestors. That maybe that the whole idea of racially tainted blood is a bad plan. And some school districts somewhere defied that and has gotten whacked over the head. Not surprising. We need more of this, to be quite honest. We need these school districts to be held accountable so they'll stop teaching all this woke nonsense. So we'll see how this continues to progress, not only in Oklahoma, but nationwide. And at least for a moment, that brings us to the end of discussion of this article.